Now, I'd like to introduce the curator and moderator of today's conference session, Amanda Ellis. Amanda was our keynote speaker last year here in Guam, and I know is thrilled to be back with us virtually. Amanda is the Director of Global Partnerships for the Global Futures Laboratory and the Executive Director for Hawaii and Asia Pacific for the Julie Ann Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability at Arizona State University. Amanda is the co-chair of the We Empower United Nations SDG Challenge, an annual global competition for women entrepreneurs whose businesses are supporting the UN Sustainable Development Goals, launched by the UN Secretary General and the World Bank President in 2018. Before joining the Wrigley Institute, Amanda was New Zealand's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva during the negotiations for the UN SDGs, and prior to that was the first woman to run NZ Aid, New Zealand's development agency. She previously held senior roles at the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, and Westpac Banking Corporation. The author of 2 best-selling Random House books on women in business and 5 research titles on gender and growth in the World Bank Directions in Development series, Amanda is a founding member of the Financial Alliance for Women, recipient of the TIAW Lifetime Achievement Award for services to women's economic empowerment, and the East West Center's Distinguished Alumni Award.
Hawhine, aloha, and kia ora. And thank you so much, Lauren. Just incredibly inspiring to hear from Governor Leon Guerrero and from UOG Senior Vice President and Provost Enrique. This is an incredible session of women sustainability solutionaries. And the governor said so brilliantly when she mentioned, when women are given the opportunity to succeed, we all benefit. It couldn't be more true. And I think in this incredible series, where we're really looking to island wisdom for a global future and looking at all of the ways in which the women who will share with you their solutions can help create a multiplier impact for good. So we have women here from across the Pacific and beyond today. We're going to start with a very short video to put women's leadership in context. I'm so impressed with your poll results, by the way, everybody. Excellent work. But we're just going to play a minute of a short video that's been done with the United Nations and the World Bank, the Council of Women World Leaders, and others.
In 2015, every United Nations member state made the commitment to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership. This builds on previous international commitments like the 1995 Beijing Platform for Action. The rationale is not just equity, fairness, and rights and representation, but also because it makes for stronger governance and better economic outcomes. The diversity dividend is well documented. In the private sector, more women in senior managerial positions and on boards correlates with an increased return on investment. In governance bodies, gender balance correlates with increased emphasis on long-term growth drivers like environmental sustainability, education, and health. So with such a strong case for gender balance, what's the current state of play? 1 in 4 parliamentarians is now female. Only 1 in 5 speakers of parliament or government ministers is a woman. And less than 7% of country leaders are women. In the private sector, almost 1/3 of companies globally have no women at all in board positions. A new index provides some insight. In a survey of 10,000 respondents in 2019, more than half expressed discomfort with women as leaders in both corporate and political life. So with progress this slow and challenges persisting, what works?
Thank you so much, Austin. I think that gives us a real insight into why I was so impressed and delighted to come to Guam last year and discover the highest percentage of women leaders in government, not only of any island, but of any jurisdiction internationally. So congratulations, Guam, you are world leaders. Now, Provost UK mentioned the Indigenous concept of restoring balance and harmony, and I just want to take a moment at this very difficult time to remind us of the importance of social equity and of addressing systemic discrimination in all its forms. We, of course, are going to be focusing on gender discrimination today, but I did want to take a moment and recognize the trauma that is taking place across much of America. So, to a positive note now, we know that research has shown the multiplier impact of women's leadership on sustainability. You saw that in the video. And in fact, foreign policy revealed in a new research study earlier this year that women leaders are actually 73% more likely to focus on sustainability issues. We heard earlier in this series from Senator Amanda Shelton, who led the bill to create Guam's 100% renewable energy commitment by 2045. We had that in Hawaii too, so exciting to see that. And of course, the governor is enacting Guam's green growth agenda, as we saw in the early video. So I am just thrilled to be able to introduce our first panel of women leaders who are aggregators, promoting a positive multiplier impact for others with a real focus on sustainability and inclusion. So I would love to see if we could just showcase our panelists before I introduce each one individually. Awesome. Thank you so much. So our first speaker, Maria Eugenia Leon Guerrero, is the COO, the Chief Operating Officer for the Bank of Guam, and the bank's most senior woman. We know access to capital and financial services are absolutely critical for business growth. And yet, financial institutions are notoriously male-oriented. A study by McKinsey estimated that between $12 and $28 trillion could be added to the global economy by 2025 just by eliminating gender discrimination and allowing women the same access to economic activity as men. So, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us about how the Bank of Guam can help promote business development that is both inclusive and sustainable for the island.
Thank you, Amanda, for that question. Hope everybody can hear me. Before I answer, I just want to very quickly thank the university and say that I'm extremely honored to take part in this conference alongside all of these very accomplished and very impressive women. So, Amanda, getting back to your question, I completely agree that financial institutions tend to be male-dominated. I will say there are a lot of women in banking, but I find that they're mostly concentrated in the areas of retail banking, operations, marketing, human resources. But if you look at, of course, the top executive positions, the boards of directors, chief lending officers, chief credit officers, it's overwhelmingly men. I think Bank of Guam has been extremely fortunate and very unique that we have had a strong female leader as our previous CEO. And of course, during her time at the bank, Governor Liu really did so much to advocate for women in business. And now that she has moved on to a higher calling, it's really up to us, the new leadership, to carry on that legacy. So in thinking of the question, I think that there are three things that the bank can do to promote business development that is both inclusive and sustainable. And the first thing is to define the specific outcomes that we are looking to achieve and start measuring the data. So for example, are we looking to increase the percentage of our loan portfolio that is with women entrepreneurs, the number of relationships, products per relationship? I think we would really just need to sit down and decide, what does success look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? And then once we have decided that, start measuring the data. The second thing we can do is to integrate diversity and inclusion values into our sales team and into our sales culture. So what do I mean by that? Making sure that women are adequately represented on our business development teams. Making sure that sales goals are tied to higher level enterprise goals around diversity and inclusion. And lastly, I think a very important thing that we need to do is to strengthen partnerships with key stakeholders. And I think that this is something that the bank has been very successful at doing. So continuing to partner with wonderful organizations such as the Guam Women's Chamber, the university, and even other local financial institutions, as we all work together towards that common goal of empowering women in business. As an example, the bank already does a quarterly economic forum, an annual small business forum. Perhaps we can partner with everyone to put together more intimate workshops specifically targeted to women entrepreneurs. Perhaps we can explore loan guarantee programs that are targeted to women, things of that nature. So to recap, the three things: data, sales culture, and partnership. And in closing, diversity does not happen by accident. If we want to achieve it, we're going to need a very deliberate strategy, commitment from the top, and alignment throughout.
Very wise words. Thank you, Maria. And that point about diversity is very well made. There's good longitudinal data now that shows that the diversity dividend is actually an addition to the bottom line. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do from a business sense. We move now to Meli James from Hawaii, who is the co-founder of Mana Up. And Meli, you are a super successful serial entrepreneur turned aggregator. On the cutting edge of tech, you were co-owner of the world's most successful wine app. Who wouldn't want that? Before returning to your native Hawaii to promote and manage business accelerators to help grow entrepreneurs locally. And I know you've been involved in a number, but your most recent venture, Mana Up, is providing a whole ecosystem of support for local Hawaiian companies. I would love it if you could share more about Mana Up and also tell us how you have been helping local businesses to pivot through COVID. As we speak, I'm looking at one of your wonderful Mana Up gift baskets on our dining room table.
Great. Well, thanks, Amanda. And I want to thank the University of Guam. I got to visit about 2 years ago and work with Annette, Anita, and the whole gang over in the Entrepreneurship Center. So thank you all for having me today. So yes, Mana Up, we are an initiative to help grow local products to markets around the world that capture the authentic people, culture, and resources of Hawaii. Hawaii is very similar to Guam in the sense that we've got very high cost of living, even for our own, for the 51 states, lowest exports per capita, and we're one of 10 states that continues to lose our local population, mainly because of a deficit and what it costs to live there as opposed to what people are actually making. And so really looking at, when we started Mana Up, how could we double down and tap into our unfair advantages, our regional strengths, and looking at the brand of Hawaii and looking at amazing products that have always been kind of our best kept secrets. But how do we help them scale to global markets, increase exports, increase our GDP in exports, and really bringing in new dollars into the state? And so we launched about 2.5 years ago. We just announced our 5th cohort. So we now have 51 companies in our portfolio. I'm really happy to share that 31 of those 51 companies are female CEOs, which is pretty incredible when we looked at some of those devastating stats that we did the polls on earlier. And we actually go and pick the best entrepreneurs who are executing and are amazingly doing what they're doing. Obviously, we can tell if a woman is a man or woman, but we have a lot of diversity. In addition to male and female, we've got 22 Native Hawaiian founders and 17 family-run businesses. But again, we pick the best entrepreneurs. They just happen to be incredibly diverse, especially in this arena. So what we've done launching cohort 5, especially during COVID, is looking at our companies, especially in the portfolio prior, who's doing well right now, and looking at direct-to-consumer e-commerce are really the ones that have more of a presence online, are faring much better than the ones that were relying much of their revenue streams on retail, especially in the tourist areas. And so not only do we believe direct-to-consumer is more around future-proofing our business and not just about right now, that revenue stream is absolutely an area that we need to double down on, even regardless of how long it takes tourism to come back. But looking at, connection to culture, authenticity, and some of these more global trends happening, especially with millennials, that's very important. And really taking this time now for storytelling and helping consumers all over the world get to know the founders, get to know the companies, and help them share their stories. Thanks, Amanda.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm hoping we'll have time to come back for another round, but I'm keeping an eye on the time. So my fellow Kiwi, Meagan Fallone, is our finals. Oh, sorry, I had jumped. No, Aimée. I am delighted to invite Aimée Christensen, who is a global sustainability legend, to share with us. Aimée has advised Google and the World Bank, among many others, and recently founded the Sun Valley Forum to promote both local sustainable and regenerative solutions to scale. She has an annual event which features the who's who, and last year included a panel on islands that the Guam Center for Island Sustainability Director Austin Shelton and I were both delighted to participate in. So Aimée, tell us about your model and why, even though you're based in Idaho, you think that island wisdom matters for a global future.
Thank you, Amanda. It's so wonderful to be with all of you. And thank you to Austin and the whole team for inviting me to be part of this. So island wisdom, I think, is, it's really a journey that I've taken, and it's about place. I have worked most of my career globally on global scalable solutions for impacts on climate, clean energy, and sustainable development. And I moved home 10 years ago and found myself in a small community in central Idaho, very isolated. And although we're not technically an island, it often feels like that. And I think that what we have in common, and what I've learned in my community about our need for resilience, is a deep need for local self-reliance. And I think islands are the places where you all have known this forever, and the dangers of relying on outside resources and not being locally self-reliant. And so in our community, we have seen this head on with drought and fires and other challenges we faced over the years, and we're facing increasingly with climate change impacts. And so we founded the Sun Valley Institute, a center for resilience, to localize our food system, localize our energy system, and become much more self-reliant so that when disasters happen, we're more resilient. And in this time of the pandemic, our food system has been interrupted, and we are so fortunate that we have regional growers with whom we've been working to support with storage and processing and other facilities so that they can supply our communities here in Idaho and not just export to the global markets. But it also diversifies our economy. We're a tourism-based economy. And when we have farmers and food growers and we have energy developers and workers in solar, it diversifies our local economy. So for us, this strategy of local self-reliance has been not just about security, it's been beneficial to our environment because we're relying on our local renewable energy, on local food growing, which is so much better for our local environment and for job creation than a traditional industrialized food system. So it's had all of these multiple benefits. At the same time, we felt that we needed to learn from the wider community. And so we founded the Sun Valley Forum, which is a global event that we host every year. And thank you, Amanda and Austin, for joining us. We work to showcase innovators, including from islands, who are piloting the strategies that will guide us in building a more sustainable world. So I find that it's the Hawaii Green Growth Team and others who are in islands who are finding the most effective solutions where they can pilot them and innovate, and we can all learn from them. And so my experience is that island wisdom has been vital to our community and communities around the world. I think this pandemic has woken all of us up to how much we need to be much more locally self-reliant and build community and connection to support each other. We've been running a local recovery committee for our county in the wake of this pandemic. Our county had the highest rate of infection of anywhere in the United States before New York City overtook us. Because we're a tourism-based economy, people were coming in, coming out right before it hit. And so our community, so that was another threat to us. And so we created a recovery committee, and we've been identifying our needs and gaps and using our scarce resources to fill those needs. And so crisis for us has turned into another opportunity. With climate risk, we created an Institute for Resilience and realized we need to localize our food system and our energy system and diversify our economy to not just rely on tourism and skiing in a time where skiing is going away. With the pandemic, we realized we needed to optimize our resources in a small community and collaborate together. And what it's doing is it's teaching us to think about the future, to build back better. So now we're looking at how do we invest in a better, more strategic future for our region, and alongside islands, share our strategies and learn from each other and help scale them up. So I'll just close with the forum that we host globally is an opportunity to showcase innovative solutions, just like this one is. So showcase those innovators, but also surround them with the partners and the investors alongside of them. And I'm so excited that this year, this summer, we're focusing on two big solutions, one in regenerative agriculture, which is an exciting new way to do better agriculture. And another one is scaling up an island-based solution that came from Australia, which is Aboriginal fire management and land management from the Aboriginal communities in Australia. And how can we learn from those Indigenous knowledge from those communities and bring them out to South Australia, from North Australia, where they had the huge fires, but also there are 29 countries around the world who have similar lands who can learn from these Aboriginal fire management solutions. So our job is to help match them with partners and investors and others at the event, which will be virtual this year. And so I feel that we're building a little island community through the forum and continuing to learn from our fellow island innovators, whether they're islands in actual physical or in communities. So thank you so much. I look forward to the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aimée. I love that idea of turning crisis into opportunity to build back better and really think about self-reliance. And it's wonderful to know that there's a little island out there in the middle of Idaho. I am thrilled now to pick up on a couple of the comments that Governor Guerrero made about food security and also energy, and why energy self-sufficiency is so important for islands. And I first wanted to give a real shout out to my fellow Kiwi, Meagan Fallone, who is currently in Switzerland. So it is around 1:45 in the morning for her. So thank you so much for joining us, Meagan. Meagan is a social innovator and the CEO of Barefoot College International, which helps to promote solar solutions at the village level through training illiterate and semi-literate women, dubbed solar mamas. So this inspirational multiplier model has been recognized by the United Nations as one of the top 20 solutions for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we know there are incredible examples all over the world in, I think now, 193 countries, including across the Pacific, in Micronesia, in Fiji, and in Vanuatu. So Meagan, over to you. And I think you wanted to show a very brief video too.
I have to say a big shout out to my fellow Hillary laureate, Aimée Christensen, and what an honor to follow her. Thank you, Amanda, for those kind words. Hafa ade and kia ora, everybody. The solar mamas are a remarkable story, and in the Pacific, they have had a quite extraordinary impact, and will, I hope, continue to do so as we expand and grow that program right now with help from the government of India, the government of Fiji, and several other governments across the Pacific. We're currently expanding the program into 14 Pacific islands. It's, as far as I know, the single largest government-backed program to address rural electrification in the poorest communities within the Pacific Islands. And I think the thing that's so extraordinary right now is that Barefoot has always believed for nearly 50 years as a Gandhian organization in the wisdom, knowledge, and skills that very poor communities already have, that indigenous communities already possess. And we have really built a high technology program on this sense of localized wisdom and placed it in the hands of women in a way that allows them to level the playing field on issues like gender, and allows them to have a voice in both their financial well-being as well as their community decisions, as well as their household decisions. And by really looking at how do we skill women, women who might not have had very much formal education, in ways that brings competence, confidence, and self-belief in themselves, but maybe not a certificate. So really widening our view of education that's much more inclusive, that leaves a space for traditional and indigenous wisdom to really blend with technology, digital technology, renewable energy technology, in order that women can facilitate that self-sufficiency for their communities. Really looking across the Pacific at how this kind of mindset allows women to really leapfrog, to play a very strong role in resilience building and adaptation, both on climate and on aggregated livelihoods. Part of this program has worked very strongly in the last 5 years to develop a co-curriculum called Enrich that works on developing women's critical thinking skills, allows them to become micro-entrepreneurs, to lead and to lead other women through the process of building sustainable livelihoods for themselves and for others. And so I think the best way to show what it means and what it looks like to transform a woman is to show you this really short clip of one of our Tonga mamas graduating at the end of 6 months, having been in India, and talking about her journey.
Today is very important and unforgettable for me and my co-training from the Kingdom of Tonga. We're coming to the end of this training. My heart is full of happiness. Why I'm happy? Because I'm full. I came here with nothing, an empty basket. But today, I have to take back to my home island. A basket is full of knowledge, full of experience and skills. And I will go back with the title, I am a solar engineer.
And so you will all get to meet one of my extraordinary solar engineers in the next panel. And I look forward to you hearing from her and her journey after Barefoot.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Meagan. I just love that my basket is full, and I'm feeling mine is very full listening to all you incredible women. In the interest of time, we are not going to do a second round just yet. So I'm hoping that you can remain with us, and we will do the second round all together after our next panel of women leaders who are social entrepreneurs, setting a standard through sustainable business.